Hello and welcome to A Window to Bourne. I'm your host, Mavis Robinson. Off camera, I've got my co-host, Captain, here joining me, and we're really excited to kick off this season of the Windows program with Tony Schiavi. Tony is the new town administrator. He's been on board for 100 days, and he's had a little bit of time to get to know us and to get to know the workings of the town, and this is our chance to get to know him. So, Tony, thank you so much for being here.
Well, Mavis, thank you for having me. I'm very pleased to be here, and I look forward to spending a little bit of time with you and also with the residents of Bourne to, I guess, open the window into who I am.
Well, that sounds lovely. Thank you. Well, let's just start with sort of, childhood. Where did you grow up? Where did you spend most of your childhood?
So I'm a native of Massachusetts, even though I probably don't sound like I am. So I purposely lost my accent as I traveled around the country in the military. But I was born in Framingham and right in the center of Metro West, about 25 miles west of Boston, and moved to Holliston when I was about 4 years old, and pretty much grew up there for all of my childhood until I graduated from college in the early or sort of late 70s, early 80s, and then embarked on my military career for 10 years or so before I relocated here to Cape Cod for the last 30 plus.
So what's a childhood in Holliston like in the 70s and 80s? What did that look like?
I'd probably say very idyllic. We had a family dairy farm not far from where our house was.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, there was a lot of farmland. It was not overly populated. It was a fairly small town. Nice Main Street, the local general store, that sort of thing. So it was very, I think, idyllic in that standpoint. But it's changed a lot over time as people have migrated perhaps more away from the city into those suburban areas. So it's changed a lot since then. But I think a great way to grow up and kind of was the beginning of my values, in terms of how I do things and the amount of effort I put into my career and the work that I do just from growing up on a farm, because it's not an easy life, to do that.
Well, when you say a family farm, I mean, were your parents working on it? Your dad? How involved was your nuclear family in the business?
Well, it was started by my grandfather, and it was started in Framingham, Hillside Dairy, and then they moved to Sherburne, and the property was about 200 acres in Sherburne, Holliston, and Ashland. And so my uncles did primarily the dairy part of it, but my father's company was the one that would haul the milk from our farm, pick up several other farms in the area, and then eventually bring it to the Hood plant, which I think was
in New Hampshire.
No, it was actually I think it was in Providence or in Rhode Island somewhere, to offload the bulk milk that would then get processed and become what you would get at your door from Hood.
Yeah. And I know, like, we're both probably momentarily distracted. Our audience can't see, but Captain is quite excited, rolling around on the floor as we talk about farms and animals. So
yes, and we had plenty of dogs running around.
Really? Did
yes,
you?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, and was it sort of like the 70s style dogs, no leashes, just kind
of?
of
Oh no,
running?
It was all open, and we had Welsh Corgis, which a lot of them were related to farming. Like Welsh Corgis are in terms of
they're herding
getting
right?
the cows to go where you wanted them to go, and they're small, short legs, so that if the cow were to kick or whatever, it would typically go over them.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. Yeah. So were those dogs actually working dogs on the farm, or were
we didn't work them too much.
Okay,
they were more pets, but they would run around with the cows because that's what sort of it's inherent in their genes to do that.
Yeah.
We typically did it ourselves. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. That's a nice life for a puppy.
Absolutely.
And for a young boy.
Sure.
Did you have sort of hands-on your own work experience on the farm? Were you given jobs? Did you not earn a living, but did you have sort of a little after-school job there at all?
I did probably once I got a little bit older, but
Okay.
when you're in that environment, you're around not just animals but machinery. I learned how to drive when I was probably 12.
Oh my gosh, really?
And not just vehicles, but tractors and bulldozers and all kinds of different types of equipment.
Yeah.
That was just part of the job. So not so much after school, mostly on weekends, just because you get involved in other activities, like sports and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else your own age, like cousins that would have been around at that time, or?
Yeah, my brother, who's only a year and a half older than I am, he was part of that, and then my uncle's son was also part of the farm, and he lived there, so he was involved in that as well. Yeah, it was. It's a lot of work. It's a 365-day thing. There is no days off.
Yep.
So it's a rewarding, but albeit a little bit of a difficult, life just because you're so focused on what you have to do every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't choose to go into farming, so you must have seen
No.
something about it that you went in a different direction.
Yeah, and it changed over time because it was dairy, and then we raised pigs for a while, farming, and of course then the sort of the sprawl that exists as development happens. Most of the farms sort of got, I'll say, eaten up by development, and
Right.
eventually you really just couldn't in that type of area really survive by doing that. So they ended up subdividing, selling parts of it off, developed part of it. But then they bought my uncle then bought a farm in New York that they still have and run.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what you do out there in upstate New York. There's farms everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just a different support network that you have that doesn't exist in sort of that Metro West area.
Right,
really.
there's still enough land that, that, it's affordable to do that.
Yeah, because to make it, you have to have a lot of land. I mean,
Right.
you can't do it on 2 acres. So
Right.
out there is ample, amounts of farming property.
Yep, yeah. So then you mentioned you got involved in sports in high school and moved on to college. Where did you go to high school? Did you go to the local Framingham High or?
No, so I lived in Holliston, but
Holliston.
I went to Marian High School, which was a parochial Catholic school
Okay.
in Framingham. So I went there through high school, as my brother did as well. My sister stayed in the Holliston school system, and when I graduated, I went to Assumption College in Worcester.
I have to have a quick question. As a Catholic myself, are the stories true about the nuns? I mean, are they whacking you on the knuckles with a ruler, or was that kind of over by that time?
Probably over by that time.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of the teachers we had were lay teachers.
Okay.
There were some nuns, and maybe 1 or 2 priests, but most of the instructors were lay instructors at that time.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. But you went, so you did the Catholic high school, the Assumption College,
Catholic college as well, I did.
Yep. And what did you focus on in school?
I got my degree in mathematics.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's good. That's a good
Numbers guy.
Yeah.
Numbers guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I can pick out a mistake pretty quickly when I look at numbers.
That's
so
great. Looking at Excel
Yeah.
spreadsheets, we need somebody
Sure.
who's got that skill.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was interesting when I did it. It really, I wanted to be a state police officer, right, a state trooper, and I sort of got convinced out of that and sort of talked into math. But it wasn't because I wanted to be a math teacher or do math research. It was really, and it made sense really after a while, it was really that it helps to teach you how to break down problems logically,
Yep.
get to solutions, how to think logically, which, once I went into the Air Force and eventually became a pilot, sort of that way my mind works, and partly through education, of course, came in very handy during really all of my career.
And did you join the Air Force as part of an ROTC program, or did you go after college? What was your connection?
Yeah, so I went into ROTC. I didn't do the 4-year program. I did what was called the 2-year program out of Holy Cross in Worcester. That's where Air Force ROTC was at the time. It's now moved over to Worcester Polytech. But yes, I went through ROTC and graduated out of there, and that's how I earned my commission in the Air Force.
Now, did you have an influential person in your life that kind of led you in that direction? What brought you to wanting to do military service?
A little bit of it was spur of the moment. So you're sort of in that end of your 2nd year of college, trying to figure, okay, what am I actually
do?
What am I going to do? And,
Yeah.
and this is literally how it went. Now my brother wanted to be in the Air Force almost his entire life, and so he was in the ROTC program. But that's what he wanted to do. Wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I sort of had other things I was interested in, and I just happened to literally go to the mailbox in the basement of my dorm, opened it up, and there was a postcard from the Air Force ROTC office at Holy Cross, and I'm sure every other sophomore that was in those mail but had the same note,
Right,
and essentially said, this is your last opportunity, because you had to do either 2 years or 4 years.
Oh, okay.
This is your last opportunity if you're interested in the Air Force, and I'm sure there was some marketing stuff on there as well. And I'm like,
Yep.
I don't know, let me go check this out. So I literally went and checked it out and signed up, and actually was put on a full scholarship, which was also a consideration for me, just on how to pay for school and,
Right, yep.
That sort of thing. And so I signed up, and right away they sent me off to a 6-week training camp, if you will, down in Florida. And as part of that, we flew to Texas to an Air Force pilot training base, and we each got a ride in a T-37, which is a jet trainer that the Air Force had. And I'm like, oh, I think I like this too. And so that, that was, it was a little bit spontaneous, really, compared to, say, how my brother, entered his military career. But it all worked out just fine.
Yeah. So you did your training, you finished college, and then, so did you end up doing flight school and getting?
Well, I did, but not right away.
Okay.
So I actually went into the Air Force as a non-rated officer first. I had a couple of knee operations in college playing football, and so, to be a pilot, I put you through some pretty rigorous physical. Rigorous physical, eyesight, hearing, color blindness, depth perception, but anything that could affect your ability to be in a cockpit or whatever was looked at very closely. And so, because I was doing this sort of towards the end of my senior year, I wasn't able to get the physical clearance part done by the time I graduated. So I went on active duty, so I was stationed out at the Boeing company in Seattle, kind of a non-traditional military assignment because I wasn't on a base. We had probably 350 people there, but most of them were civilians, maybe 50 military, but most of them were civilians. But the Air Force Base was close by. But as soon as I got there, I started to research and figure, okay, how do I eventually get myself into pilot training? And sort of started that effort right out of the gate when I got there, which was a little bit unusual because
you could have taken a different path with the mathematics and
engineering.
Yeah.
And that's always my pitch to young people when they're trying to figure out career paths, is to it's important to set up what your goals are, but not to be so rigid that can't change.
Right.
So when I first got there, I didn't know whether I was ever going to go to pilot training. So I set up a career path in the Air Force, all active duty, 20-year career, as a non-rated, non-pilot, officer, right? So I had all my schools and my advanced degrees I needed to get, the assignments I should try to get along the way to eventually get to 20 years, be promoted to colonel, and that's what you did. But, a year and a half or 2 years into that, I get selected for pilot training.
Right.
And so as I go off to pilot training, that goes in the drawer. And once I graduated pilot training and I was assigned to the F-15, I literally did the same thing. I said, okay, now what do I need to do as an F-15 pilot? What schools do I need to go to? What military education do I need? I wanted to go to the Fighter Weapons School, which is the Air Force version of Top Gun. I wanted to do that, and I want to be a squadron commander, and so I did that 20-year career. Well, I go off to Desert Storm in 1990, 91. I came back, and it was time for me to get a new assignment, and I ended up here at Otis.
Otis Air Force Base,
active duty in 1992 as an active duty F-15, call it exchange pilot, if you will. And a year into that, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I said, what better thing to be on Cape Cod, fly F-15s for my entire career. So that other path went into the drawer, and now I created the Air National Guard plan to say, okay, now what do I need to do?
So the offer was basically commit to the Air National Guard,
leave active duty,
you'll be permanently assigned to
Otis.
Right.
And so I redid that whole thing. It's okay, now what do I need to do? And I was able to go to Top Gun School, the Air Force Fighter Weapons School, from Otis back in 1994, which was a really important goal for me to do. And they, offered me that opportunity to do that, which I may not have had on active duty. So, so that sort of started the whole thing that led to what turned out to be a 10-year active duty career and a 20-year career right here at Joint Base Cape Cod.
Right. Now, so when you were assigned to Otis, did you live in Bourne? Did you live on base?
I did. I lived in Bourne from 92 to 97.
Okay.
So when I first got it, I lived on base because
I
was active duty, so I could do that. And they, nice housing, and you're amongst the Air Force people, so I thought that was great. So I did that for a year. But once I left and joined the Air National Guard, I had to move off base.
Okay.
So I lived off of Clay Pond Road until 1997.
Yeah,
so about 4 years. So about 5 years total, right here in Bourne.
Any impressions of the town from that time?
No, we had a great time here. I had a boat, so I'd take it down to Monument Beach, and I put the boat in. Although boating was a little different than when it was in Florida. So we had a few instances we got a little close to some rocks, which you don't really have that in Florida. I mean, it's sand and sand.
And there's a lot of unmarked rocks in Finney's Harbor.
It was a different type of boating, and so we did that for a couple of years, and then I'm like, I just didn't feel that comfortable. I wasn't out on the water enough to do that, so I ended up selling the boat. But we had a great time and spent lots of time in Bourne.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good. Well, that's nice. Well, it's nice to know that you've already had a little footprint in the town. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And then commuted here for 20 years, too.
Yeah. So I just, in previous conversations, I wanted to just sort of ask you on a serious note. I know that, you became the wing commander of the Air National Guard, in charge of the F-15s at Otis. And you were, everybody sort of remembers where they were on the day of 9/11. You really had a unique role and perspective. Could you just say a little something about that?
Yeah, we did. So that, the morning of 9/11, it was a Tuesday and a beautiful day. So at that particular moment, I was the director of operations. So I had all the pilots underneath me and in charge of operations. And it was a normal day for us when we had staff meetings every Tuesday, and so we were in a conference room just off the wing commander's office. But public affairs was right across the hall. And at some point during the meeting, the public affairs officer came in and said, "I just wanted to let you know there was an airplane that hit the World Trade Center." But at the time, there was all this confusion, and it was reported as a light airplane.
Right,
And of course, several of us in that room were pilots, and of course, we're looking outside, and it's beautiful, and we're, okay, mechanical problem, medical emergency, something that means you just don't run into a building.
Right.
So we just went on with business. It's a tragedy nonetheless, but not something anybody's really too, concerned about from a terrorism perspective. So we ended up taking a short break from our meeting, and we were just kind of milling around in the hallway. This time he came running in, and said a second plane, just hit the other tower. And so right then and there, when we consider in that room, we probably had 200 years of military experience. Most of us had combat time and stuff, and we all looked at each other. Okay, something's going on, and so we activated our battle staff. Now we knew our alert planes had launched probably 15 minutes before that.
Oh, so even before you knew about the second plane, the alert plane?
Yeah, our aircraft launched at like 8:46 in the morning, and started heading towards New York for a possible, hijack. But the information about the hijack came in a totally non-standard way. Essentially, the control tower called over to ops and said, "Hey, we're hearing something about a potential hijack."
Wow.
But that's not how you get scrambled on alert. There's a command structure and all of that. So, but the pilots that were on duty that day happened to be standing at the operations desk when that call came over, and he just said, something doesn't sound right. Let's go over there and we'll at least get near the airplanes, because that was across the flight ramp. So they actually drove over there, still not knowing anything. And by the time they got over there, it actually came down through the proper channels that they ended up getting scrambled. But we got scrambled, not fairly routinely for different things. So again, it really wasn't alarming at all.
Sort of have the planes there if you need them, but we probably don't need them.
And if you launch, then okay, we'll find out what because most of them typically didn't turn out to be too much. But obviously on this day, things were different. So the alert planes were headed for New York, and we activated our battle staff and started to make phone calls to try to figure out if we could, figure out what was going on. But if you remember at that time, if you were around, cell phones were fairly, you couldn't even make a phone call.
I remember,
It was very difficult. So on a military side, we're very, sort of structured from a command standpoint. You wait for higher headquarters to tell you, okay, here's what we want you to do. Well, we didn't have access to a lot of information because of that. And so we ended up making decisions on our own. And we had, I think, 6 training airplanes that were out flying. Well, we immediately recalled them back to the base. And at one point, we actually started to load them with live weapons even before we were told to, because we just knew that something was going on. And so that started literally an around-the-clock effort to protect New York City and other key infrastructure in the Northeast for months and months. So not too many people in the Cape know that the nation's first response for 9/11 came right here on Cape Cod.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
Which made the whole base closure thing 4 years later very, shocking to all of us that even happened. We thought we were, Homeland Defense was mission number 1. We felt very, confident that how could you close Otis? We're right where you need to be to protect the homeland. So others felt otherwise, and that sort of set up a chain of events to where we are today.
And what an incredible, I don't want to say battle that was, sort of fighting the base closure, but sort of trying to negotiate, how to keep as many jobs as possible local, and certainly the community really supported. The base has been such an important part of Bourne. It really feels like another village or another neighborhood in the town.
Yeah, absolutely, and we had to fight it from different aspects, because when it first came out, the base was, at least the Otis part. I mean, obviously the Army's there, the Coast Guard's there, the Active Duty Air Force runs the radar site, but Otis, and we provided all the runway, all the infrastructure, the fire department. We controlled all those activities. So initially it was a complete closure,
Yeah.
which would have had devastating effects, not just on the community from an economic impact standpoint, but the ability for the Coast Guard to remain there, or the Army, or anything else. And we know how important the Coast Guard is to Cape Cod and to the fishing community and the boating community and all of that. So, but the services looked, sort of through a soda straw, just at their little piece of it, which was eventually got us to actually rebrand the base.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a formally recognized joint base, that many of which came out of BRAC, the base closure, it at least tells people, hey, Joint Base Cape Cod, there's something joint there that hopefully if we ever, if one of these closure things happens again, that the services will recognize that, okay, maybe I should look a little more broadly than just my separate service to see what impact any decisions I make might have on others.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure that that'll happen, but that was the mindset behind sort of rebranding the base to Joint Base Cape Cod.
Well, yeah, and then you just sort of officially have more players that are invested and that, sort of really want it to stay open. Yeah.
Yeah, and it brought everybody together too. And not that we didn't meet on a regular basis, but I think it established the executive director. So I was actually the first executive director for.
Oh, interesting.
It was Mass Military Reservation at the time, and then eventually became Joint Base Cape Cod, as a way to ensure that all the military and other civilian functions. There's a number of civilian activities that exist on the base. I mean, the sheriff's office is probably the most well known, but there's other activities on the base that are civilian, government civilian, and just making sure we're all talking together, we all know what everybody's doing, and really make sure that we have a good relationship with the other stakeholders on the base.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a really unique perspective by having been involved, and now you're out of military service and involved with local government. Do you foresee in the future any way of sort of reintegrating the base a little better with the town at large? It feels like when I was growing up here, you could drive on the base, you could drive through the base, which was very, very handy.
Yeah.
We had friends living there, and now it sort of seems a little bit like a black box just kind of sitting out in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, certainly after 9/11, I mean, and I'm not sure that part will ever change, just because of the security that military installations need. But I don't think that in and of itself should prevent the base community from being part of the larger community in the towns that surround it, and certainly the children that live on the base go to Bourne schools,
yep.
and I'm sure they have friends that are on the outside of the base, and there are children outside the base that have friends on the base, or even adults for that matter. So yes, and I know it's
likely to go the other way. Schools on the base any longer, or
I don't think you'll see a need for that. I mean, the amount of housing on the base has decreased quite a bit. So you find a lot of the military folks actually live out in the community. So I don't think there's a need there. I mean, Bourne has a very robust education system, very high quality education system, and good schools with the new one that just got built. So I don't necessarily see that, and I know it's a goal of the selectmen to, again, more consistently reach out to the base to make sure that, yes, you are part of our community. We have, the community center, we have rec programs. We want to make sure that, one, they're aware of all those, and two, that we continue to welcome them and make sure they know that they're a part of the community as well.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to do an air show in 2021, so that's a opportunity. I did the last air show in 2007. There hasn't been one since, so there's going to be one next year.
Oh, good, yeah.
And so that's an opportunity where the base does open up, and the community and probably several 100,000 other people will come out. But it's you can mix and mingle with military members. You can see what's going on at the base, see the equipment that our military professionals use today to do their jobs, and sort of open the window a little bit more into that. So I think that's a goal we want to. I think that's a goal we want to work for, and some of my relationships there, I hope to be helpful in making that successful.
Well, wonderful. So you've been on the job for about 100 days. I think it was 98 I counted. And what have you seen in Bourne so far? And if you wouldn't mind just sort of giving, one of the things that's a main goal that you're kind of working on behalf of the citizens.
Well, we have a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of goals out there
Yeah.
right now. Bourne is a great community. Certainly, the folks that we have that work in our town government are very dedicated. They're professional, very knowledgeable about the town, and so as we start to develop a strategic plan, now we just recently got approved our local comprehensive plan, which is a very important guiding document for any community, and I commend the folks that worked on that. It typically is run through the planning board, but it's sort of that guiding document about what do people want the town of Bourne to become, to look like, services. I mean, the whole
And it'd be a
the whole
wonderful thing
gamut.
for anybody to read
Absolutely.
if they wanted to know what the
Yep.
mission or the future
Right.
of the town would look like.
Yeah, and frankly,
Yep.
anytime we're looking at some big endeavor, we should run it through that local comprehensive plan, kind of a filter to say, is what we're proposing fit within the context of what the community says they want their town to look like and their town to be. So, challenges-wise, obviously we have a number of challenges in the future with like new bridges and
Right.
those type of things. Our community is unique because we have a canal between us that splits the town, but it doesn't create two towns.
Right.
It's still one community, and we always have to be mindful of as we focus on things like Main Street, Buzzards Bay, and the investments we want to make there, which are very important, but not forget that we have other parts of the community that we need to look to have relationships with and look to see what kind of things we can do there as well. I think there's 10 villages in Bourne, and they all have a uniqueness to them, which is I think really helps make the character of the town very rich. And so I'm getting ready to put out sort of my 8 strategic goals and objectives for the staff, again, as a way to help guide us in making sure that the services we provide, the programming we provide is what the community is looking for, asking for, and to make sure they know that we're good stewards with the tax dollars that we have and spending them in the right places to continue to improve the community in the ways that the residents and businesses are looking for.
Well, that's wonderful. So will you be sharing those strategic goals widely? How would a
Absolutely.
citizen find out what they
Yep,
were?
I mean, whenever I do those things, we're working on trying to improve our website, obviously, because a lot of people today, that's where they start to look for information, and we've heard loud and clear that, and I experienced it myself, just in prepping for the interview here, it's a little bit hard to find certain information. It's probably there. It's just not that easy
a
to
little
find.
hidden, yep.
So we're working on that. That's a big project. But when I do stuff, that will obviously be there for people to see and to read because they need to know what we're looking for and what we're trying to do as
Yeah.
well.
All right. So first stop would be the website to check out where our goals are and what your strategic goals are. And I just wanted to, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to talk to you. You have such a unique collection of experience, and the fact that you've been sort of battle tested out there in the real world and the military world makes me think that you're going to be a great fit for the challenges.
Well, thank you.
Face you.
Well, thank you. And I'd be happy to come back anytime as things change, or if some subject comes up. I enjoy these type of interviews, and I thank you also for your time and great questions.
Well, thanks. Well, I'm going to hold you to that. So maybe
All
we'll
right.
see you in another 6 months or so.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining me today on A Window to Bourne.